Hello everyone, and welcome back to another R tutorial video. And in this video we're going to continue our discussion on plotting in R. So up to this point we've talked about histograms and box plots, and we've delved a little bit into the way that we can construct the ggplot calls, and the difference between passing parameters into the ggplot call versus the geom call, and why you may choose one over the other. The final plot that I want to talk about is the scatterplot. And in case you're not familiar with a scatterplot is two numeric data sets or data values that control the x and y axis. So after we finish this discussion on scatterplots, we'll go back in and we'll start talking about how we can embellish these plots by adding things like titles, changing themes, changing legends, using color, size, and shape, and all the different sort of variables that we can play with there. But for now, let's finish this discussion on scatterplots. So as always, I want to start with the base R implementation of a scatterplot. So scatterplots are done by calling the plot function in R. And just like with the box plot, the scatterplot requires a formula. And again, it's going to be the y-axis, or the variable that you want on the y-axis, with a tilde, which again is the shift backtick. So that's the key directly above the tab. So shift and the key above tab. And then the x variable that you would like. So we're going to do sepal width versus sepal length. And if we run this, oh, sorry, we also have to include, I almost forgot, we have to tell it what data set to look at, and that's what data equals, and in this case, we're going to use the iris data set again. So if we run this, and then we run this here, you'll see this is the way that the scatterplot looks in base R. So now let's talk about how we construct it in ggplot. And I'm going to go back to the idea of when we talked about box plots of these different construction methods. And I'm going to use my preferred construction method for ggplot, which is give the data in the ggplot call, but then leave the mapping and the aesthetics to the individual layers that you call after that. So just to sort of recap what this looks like, we call the ggplot, which is the way that you start every single ggplot. We're going to pass in data equals iris, and then we're going to add, and then the layer that we're going to add is we're going to add a geometry layer as always. Specifically, we're going to call the geometry point layer, or geom underscore point. And so because we've passed the data into ggplot, but nothing else, we have to pass at a minimum the mapping. And then we use the aesthetic function. And the aesthetic function takes in the x and the y. So this is going to be very similar to that box plot call that we made before. And our x in this case is going to be sepal.length. Making sure that I get my capitalizations correct. And the y is going to be sepal.width. We'll run that, and then we'll run that. And you'll see here that we've created essentially the same graphic. So hopefully that made sense. I know this is a shorter video, so I want to take just a minute here and just sort of recap conceptually what ggplot is doing. So again, the ggplot call, this original function call here, is setting up the blank ggplot object. And in my preferred method, I pass the data into this object. And then we use the plus sign to add additional layers. And in this case, we're adding the geom point, or the point geometry layer. And then we're passing the mapping into this layer, with mapping equals And then this AES function, or aesthetics function, says what are we passing. We're going to assign sepal length to the x value, or the x coordinate, and we're going to pass in sepal width to the y coordinate. Hopefully that made sense. If any of this doesn't make sense, I encourage you to pause, go back, rewatch the part you're confused about, and as always, please reach out. Thank you.